Okay, so yeah, welcome everyone. Today I'm here with guest Joshua Shapiro, and he's got a lot of interesting stuff that we might talk about. For sure, I'm not totally sure like what all we're going to get to, but um, I wanted to. I definitely have a few topics that I want to hit. Joshua, why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you, Ken, for having me on your show.
Mhm.
I hear great things about what you're doing and the things you're covering. So I want to let people know that the word is getting out.
Oh,
For
thank you.
myself, you're welcome. For myself, most people know me as what I would call a crystal skull and paranormal explorer. That would be the simplest way for me to try to summarize what I do. But I'm a typical Aries. Anything that looks interesting, I'm going to go explore it, check it out, and try to learn the truth. And then the best information that I find on my travels and my exploration, then I'm going to try to share it with other people, which obviously I do through interviews like this or free ebooks. Or I just finally did a public talk on Tartaria like about a week ago, which is the first public talk I've given since September of 2019, since all this crazy stuff started. And I would say that the other thing I think which is very important, what I'm doing, is I've had two very powerful personal, spiritually uh, motivated, spiritually connected experiences that show me without any doubt whatsoever our world is definitely heading towards a time of absolute peace and harmony, paradise. I'm feeling that this could be happening within about the next 15 years or so, which for some people that probably say, well, that's kind of crazy. There's so many challenges that we have right now. But I think
Mhm.
as we're sitting here on June 8th doing this interview, I think we're on the cusp of some really amazing, unbelievable events that are about to take place, which will definitely start showing many people all over the world that we are definitely headed in this direction. So
Okay.
that's kind of, a quick summary. I've written books and we have our own crystal skulls, and I have 6 free ebooks, which hopefully we'll get into a little bit towards the end, and a
Yeah.
new center that I'm working on to create as well. So I always
Okay.
keep myself busy, and I'm absolutely positive that we're moving in a positive direction.
Okay. Well, I'll bite. Why don't you fill us in on why you would think that?
Okay, so let me explain the two experiences I have. And by the way, they are talked about in one of my free ebooks, which is called Messages from Argus. So the first experience that I would discuss is when I was living in Las Vegas, which was back in um, the early 2000, I think it was from 1999 to 2001. I was walking down a main street going to McDonald's, which of course I will never eat again because I know what they put in their food. But at this time, it was naive, and there are many things I know now that I have no clue, from those times. And I heard a loud screech behind me, and I'm fearless. I always feel like I'm protected. And the next thing I know is my vision from the top part to the bottom, from light to dark, it just goes out. And I lose consciousness. And when you lose consciousness, you're not thinking about anything. So the next thing that I remember after that happens is waking up in the hospital, strapped down in a bed with a doctor asking me if I remember the truck that hit me. And I'm thinking to myself, what is he talking about? Because I don't remember, even to this day, I do not remember what happened to me. In other words, I didn't feel it. I didn't experience it. It was like I was taken out of my physical body before this happened to it. So what the doctor was telling me indirectly was a van had jumped the curb on this um, sidewalk I was walking to go to McDonald's. And in Las Vegas, they drive like 50, 55 miles an hour in the city streets, very fast.
Hmm.
And from behind, I was struck. And apparently, I flipped into the air and I fell into a gravel area. And, I feel like I left my body before this happened. So when the doctor asked me this, I thought he was crazy. And then I lost consciousness again. And I came awake 3 days later. So I was hit on a Thursday and I came awake on a Sunday. And so then I found out, oh, there was this fan that struck me and I could see that there was damage to my physical body. There was a really bad scrape on my left ankle, and all the muscles in my neck were really, really sore, and I was very low energy. It was like I could only go, like maybe to when I came back to like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 before I had no energy and I had to rest. And so it took me several months to fully recover to be back to normal energy. Now, the significance of this event is what I understand now, and I still do not fully, completely understand the whole experience. I still think there's a lot more to it, is that I made an agreement before I was born. Now, this is coming from a spiritual perspective. When I was in spirit, that at this time, I would allow this experience to happen because I needed to go to a meeting on the inner planes. Now, the only thing that I can remember from this, and the only way I can explain it, like I just watched the first 3 movies of Star Wars in the order, not when they came out, but in the order that that Lucas made them. And in the first one, Princess Amidala goes to Trantor, and her planet is being invaded by the Trade Commission or something like that.
Trade Federation.
Trade Federation. And so she's asking for help. I was at a meeting like that where there were beings from many different worlds. And what it seemed like is that there was a 3-dimensional graphic image in the front of the room that was showing real life, activities. Now, my sensing was I was not the only person from the earth that this happened to. There were others there. I don't know who they are. I can't remember them. But I was there to give feedback to our galactic family, how to help our planet so that we could have this time of peace that I'm talking about. Because the problem is that I live here, so I know how people are going to respond to the things that they would be doing. Because you and I might think, well, it would be great. The extraterrestrials could come down here. They could disarm all the weapons. They could bring total peace right away. But this is an interference of free will. We chose to be here on this planet, understanding that we would have the challenges that we're facing right now between the light and the dark. So I was there to give feedback on their ideas about how to be able to help us without causing more fear and panic. Because there's a lot of people, I wouldn't think young people, but older people like myself, I'm 67, so maybe in their 50s, 60s, 70s, who may not be comfortable with the idea that there are extraterrestrial beings that may, fly in our sky and come down and have interaction with us. The younger people, I think, are used to it from all the science fiction, the movies and the TV shows we have. So the key to this is I saw everything. Do you understand what I'm telling you? They showed me the future. They showed me what they're going to be doing. But then when it was time for me to come back, I was not allowed to remember it. However, I was told, there was a gentleman there who I knew. And when I say gentleman, I don't know what that means. A masculine being. Okay. Was it a look like us or something else? I don't know. But in my mind, I see this man, this person. And he says to me, although you're not going to be allowed to remember, and I was begging him to, because I could have such great stuff to tell everybody. Okay. I saw it all. He said, when your future comes that becomes your present, you're going to know what's true and what's not true. Okay. So like when the pandemic came up, I knew that they were lying about the number of people that were affected. Maybe not in China. Now, China was different because China, somehow I gave permission to start watching all these videos and everything too as this started unfolding. And I saw a video from China right after the pandemic had come out at the end of 2019 and early 2020, where the Chinese in Wuhan were taking video with their mobile phones, their cell phones. And I think that what happened, now I can't prove this, and I don't know where this comes from, but it makes sense to me. I think that they did an experiment in Wuhan between the 5G, because that was like one of the first cities that got 5G, and they had already possibly vaccinated their citizens there to see how the vaccine would work with being activated by the 5G. And I believe that there were a lot of people in that city who got affected. But when it started spreading, all over the world, and it started coming into the US, I just knew for a fact that they were not giving us the true information, and they never have since the
Right.
time they began.
So, do you think that the reported numbers are are lower or higher than reality?
Much lower.
Yeah.
And like, for example, another place that I found very good information is Telegram. And again, what I'm doing is when I'm looking at things, I'm listening to myself, because there's a part of myself that already knows what's happening. Okay. And I believe that the numbers that were given, like 99.8% of the people who got COVID were seriously affected.
Yeah.
And, okay, so it was like this. And, so this is one of my experiences that I'm using. The same thing, like, let's look at what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia. Doesn't make any sense to me what the media is talking about. Russia, number one, is one of the most powerful countries in the world. If they're going to go in and they're going to seriously invade Ukraine to take it over, we're talking about in a matter of days, it's over. It's
Yeah.
like what happened in, what was it, in Iraq, when the US went into Iraq, or was it Iran? Iran. In a matter of days, the war is over. And yet it's
Yes.
still continuing. So there's something else that's going on there.
Yeah,
And
something
again,
that's really weird. That's kind of like, so I'm in Canada. If United States decided to take over Canada, it would be done in a matter of 2 hours. Like,
yeah,
not
exactly.
exaggerating. It's no joke. It's just done.
Right.
Yeah, there is something strange about that.
Right. So I believe that, again, on Telegram, what they're saying, and of course, I'm not expecting that your listeners are going to agree with me on this, but I'm saying from the perspective of that experience that I had, where I was in this meeting, it makes a lot more sense that Russia went into the Ukraine, because Ukraine is one of the main places where, whatever you want to call the other side, the elite, the globalists, the cabal, all of their stuff was going on in there, and the Russians are taking them out. The Russians already presented to the UN about these laboratories that were creating all kinds of, like, COVID type diseases and things like that. Absolute proof that they presented to the UN, but the major media will not cover any of this. And especially in Canada, you're not going to hear about any of this. This is the reason why I go onto Telegram. And also too, I remember after COVID started, I was just sitting like close to where I am right now by my computer and thinking, I want to know the truth. And right after that, all of a sudden, people were sending me messages on Facebook with videos. And it's like, since that point in 2020, it has never ended for me, where I feel like I'm being kept up to date. So I see at a high level what's happening. So basically, what I know is going on, if we're going to summarize it, is we have an undeclared war that's happening right now. The light in the dark is coming out to the surface, but this is the thing. I cannot prove this, but again, I'm hearing this from, call it my galactic family, our galactic family, whatever. The war is already over. It's like a chess game. We have two masters playing each other, and one already knows they've won, and the one who's lost, there's nothing they can do to stop this. Okay, so even though we still have activities that are happening right now that we think, like, this war in the Ukraine is going on, and all these problems that we're having, like here in the United States with Biden, is going on. No, it basically has been taken care of. But the major problem is most people are probably still sleeping. And if somebody's sleeping, you can't just say, okay, look, here's the election in the United States with Trump. Here's the proof, absolutely, that he won. No, Trump's doing that because he doesn't like to lose, and he wants to become the king. So people wouldn't believe it. So what they decided is, okay, we'll let Trump lose, and we'll let people see what happens when the Democrats take over with Biden. And everything in the US has gotten tremendously worse. Okay.
I'm not gonna comment on that, but I wanna go back to what you were talking about the I guess this galactic uh, well,
Sure.
it was basically some kind of galactic senate, right? So
Yeah.
when Amidala is I said the wrong thing earlier because I said the Trade Federation, but you were actually talking about the Galactic Senate.
Or
Now
the
those are
Republic,
yeah,
it was called then.
exactly. And so it's interesting though because so you're basically saying that you had an experience and you were taken somewhere else, um, and and there was a gathering of other beings and they were hashing out policy and listening to people's experiences and perspective in terms of what would happen on Earth and presumably in other places as well. Um, so the interesting thing about this is that if let's just say that what happened to you is a fact and like you're not crazy and you even though you don't necessarily remember everything you know that this happened. Okay, I'm fine with that. So let's if that's true, then let's look at the parallel here. um, if that can happen to you, it can also happen to many other people. And you said yourself there were other people there. And so this kind of brings us to this idea of information coming from elsewhere, out in the galaxy, out in the universe, and coming through various mechanisms and means and coming to humans on Earth. So in your case, you were taken to a meeting, but there's lots of other people who experience it in a slightly different way, either through dreams or sort of what do you call it?
Telepathy,
Telepathic sort of interceptions and things like that.
right?
And those are actually very much a part of the standard religion, just under a different name. Like when we talk about praying and we talk about prophecy or prophetic words, or in some circles they talk about a word of knowledge, and these are things that are well within the church, depending on what denomination you're in, they may be more accepted or less accepted, but at least there's biblical evidence and a lot of it because nobody can deny that there were prophets in the Bible. Um, so if all that is true and your experience is basically the same type of thing, I personally think that most artists are receiving inspiration
Yep.
from a very similar type of process. So it doesn't surprise me at all to find similarities popping up between the worlds of Star Trek and Star Wars and all these other science fiction elements. I myself have written a little bit of science fiction, and I think some of the ideas I got were inspired because I don't think they came from just me making them up, honestly. And so, is it possible, do you think, that um, that George Lucas got a message subconsciously, perhaps, or maybe he experienced it in a strange way, but didn't want to tell anybody. But where does he get these ideas? And when we start to look at this, even the ancient in the Bible, there's similar things that we don't really recognize, but there are there, and the Sumerian mythologies and many other very ancient stories that we have within our culture, and they're all saying the same thing. There's people out there that are trying to talk to us.
I think so. I would compare this experience to what I had with Virgil Postaway, who was one of the whistleblowers, military whistleblowers. I met him at some UFO conferences. Even though I'm Crystal Skull, sometimes I get invited to speak at UFO conferences. And he and I were talking about the series Dune. We remember being a part of that series. And this goes along with the message I received one time where I heard, anything that you can imagine, You can only imagine it because it already exists somewhere in God's infinite universe. Okay, so
Right.
I think in a lot of ways, these stories that are being told by science fiction are coming from other places within the universe where these scenarios are happening. And they relate to kind of the challenges that we're going through here. Because from a spiritual perspective, and one who understands that creator is everything that exists on every level. In other words, the molecules of our body are the molecules of creator. There cannot be just one planet Earth that has intelligent life in the entire universe. There has to be many places where there is intelligent life. And again, as I go into both the light and the dark of what's happening, part of the problem that we're having on the Earth may be caused also by the not so nice, let us say, galactics who are into conquest and enslavement, and that they have a group of human beings which they're working with. So if that's true, this would be part of the reason why the more loving, positive ones who live in a spiritual way would want to come to us. But also, I think what it comes down to is its creator's will. And this comes through a document that I believe the globalists have that you have to sign to participate in their projects. That was, again, shown on Telegram that I saw, which, you know, again, I riveted to it. There was something about it that caught my attention as if I already knew about this document existing. And there were two components of it that are very important. First component talked about the word poison repeatedly. We're going to create poison. And then to offer a solution to the people, we create a new poison. Does that not sound familiar with what's going on with COVID and the vaccine? It is a duplication of that. But here was the part that really surprised me. They also discussed we cannot allow anyone to ever know this. Prime creator only allows us this ability to have, let's say, charge of this world if the people living underneath us agree to give us their power. If they say one simple word, this is probably the most important thing I'm going to say on your show tonight. The word is no. I will not follow this. This is morally wrong. I don't care what the consequences are. I will not do it. If the majority of people on this planet say, no, I will not do it, creator comes in and intervention comes in and they lose everything. That's why I'm telling you, I already know they've lost more than 50%. This was a telepathic message from Galactic Family. More than 50% now of people are awake and are saying no. Indirectly, a good thing, I mean, it's hard to understand this, but indirectly, it's almost like a good thing happened from the COVID, is it woke a lot of people up. Do you know how many people have been protesting in your country? You know what happened when all the truck drivers went to your capital city? I've talked to people who were there. They said it was amongst the people that came together, it was like paradise. Everybody was working together and harmonious. And one person told me that because then all of a sudden everything disappeared and nobody said how it happened. I understand that the Canadian government had to hire in military from that was not Canadian to come in to take out the truckers. That's the reason why it went away. So,
well, that I'm not going to say that's impossible, but I do know a couple people, a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing, who were there in Ottawa, and I'm pretty sure they're still here with us.
You still think some people are out there doing this, protesting?
I don't think they're protesting, but they weren't gunned down by the military, is what I'm saying.
No, not gunned down, but, you know, led away is what I heard.
Possibly.
And some arrests. Anyway, this happened in Australia and many other places. Not so much in the US, but, you know, there are certain states that are not going along with what the Democrats are doing, like Florida. Here in Georgia, we have almost our life back to normal where we're living. You know, we're not having any suppression or whatever. So, but anyway, this part about Prime Creator is very interesting. They have already gone too far, is my feeling. So this is another reason why I believe that it's just a question of time before paradise starts happening and everything starts changing. New economic system, new currency, new medicine. And it's because we're going to get this help from the galactics too. And we'll go back.
And I love what you said about it just takes one word. So
Yeah.
I am a bit of a pessimist myself, but so I'm not necessarily convinced that it's going to be that easy. But I think factually and theoretically, it is that easy. It only takes us to say no. Will we say no? That is another question in my mind, because from what I see, we're just drinking the poison and we don't care, and we love it and we buy it and we spend millions and billions of dollars every year funding it and making sure it continues. And so if you want a very simple example that seems stupid, but Coca-Cola is killing it.
Yes.
And here we are just drinking it up, like you already talked about McDonald's. But actually the FDA in the United States is legislated law that you have to put poison on every crop grown in America. So all the food grown in American soil is completely coated with poisons before it even starts growing. As soon as the seeds are planted, there's all this pesticides and fertilizer. They call it different things, but all it really is poison. So what the hell's going on? Why is the government trying to kill its own people?
Right. So obviously we are seeing a recreation of what happened in Tartaria, if a person is open for that. Tartaria was taken out completely. And the experts, I'm not an expert, but I've been studying it, have talked about a mud flood as what they believe was the key result, which would be sort of like a flood that happened to Noah, where the world was completely wiped out. The evidence—
Is this on Earth or a different planet?
Yes, no, this was on Earth, and this is only like 200 some years ago. Now, what's interesting is I saw on Telegram, Putin was talking about, from the Russian perspective, what's going on, and saying about the Nazis and they're taking them out of Ukraine. But he also mentions Tartaria, because Tartaria on the maps prior to 1800 are shown in the area located where Russia is and all the states of Russia, and also part of China as well.
Okay, yeah, I've seen this.
So the key again idea to this is twofold: that we were not told the true history of our planet, and second of all, was there a reset before with Tartaria, and are they trying this again?
Well, there's been many resets. I could list at least 6 from a purely geological perspective that essentially wiped out 90% of the Earth, the life on Earth. Well, maybe not 90, but in each of these events, between 60 and 90% of life on Earth was killed, and in some cases, there was one specific event where 70% of all marine life was not only killed but extinct. So the entire species were extinct.
Yeah.
And that happened several million years ago, and it happened several times over a million years here and there. And that's not a controversial statement. That's every scientist will tell you that. Then on top of that, you've got volcanoes, you've got floods, you've got asteroid impacts. So we're constantly resetting, and the stupid thing about us right now is that we think that we're on this long trajectory of growth, and we have erased all of these reset events just as if, well, it was so far in the past it didn't affect us. But all that shows is that there's no understanding of the growth that we had reached in the previous cycles, which is sort of a silly thing to assume.
Well, so coming back to the point that I'm talking about, I'm not expecting that your listeners are going to agree or disagree with it. It is basically information that's coming out. I'm not the only one that's talking about these different things.
Yeah.
And it is coming together, making sense to me based upon the idea that I had this meeting that I went to where I already saw these things. And it's like, as it's being revealed, I'm starting to remember that. Now, the second experience that I had, which is significant, which again is hard to explain, and it basically comes from the understanding that from a spiritual perspective, time and space is meaningless. In other words, like when I speak to spiritual mediums, which I have done a number of times over the years during all my studies, and I just like that opportunity to have contact, to have a direct contact, like how we're speaking, but to be able to speak to another being who comes from a different reality. When I talk to them, especially when they come from a more spiritual level, they say time and space isn't, doesn't really exist. It may look like a reality here on Earth, but where we come from, everything is in the simultaneous now. Now, the reason I bring that up is because this is the only way I can explain my next experience.
Can I just say though, that's also part of, that's very much mainstream religion. God is defined as being a being who is outside of the bonds or bounds of time and space. So are the angels. It's not just God. So if you have a religious background, this is not weird stuff that he's talking about here. This is actually built into your theology. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm trying to remember how this first came up. I don't know, it's just one day. It's like this when you're on a spiritual path, you never know what's going to come up each day. A whisper here and inside, oh yes, or you read something and then you realize something. So it's one of those days where I heard a voice speaking to me, and it felt like it's one of my spirit guides, okay, because I know we have spirit guides. So to make a long story short, what this spirit guide told me, says, Joshua, I am you. I am who you become in your future in this lifetime. And where I'm speaking to you from is 2037 to 2040. And I go, oh, how's this possible? And I have to explain it to you this way. There is no time and space. Now, from a past life perspective, there are past lives that I know who I have been. And I've actually gone to the places where these people have been. One lifetime, I don't know if I was that person, or I think there's a level of our soul, kind of like an oversoul, where we experience, other parts of our soul. We can experience other lifetimes and we can become them. So I know in one case it was part of my oversoul, but a couple of times I think it was the real me. And so I've had instances like that, or like I remember when I was a young child, my father worked at a toy store and I would play with Civil War Army men. Well, I've been to the battlefields. I know that I was a military officer on the Union side, and I believe I know who I was. And one of the battles I went to, Gettysburg, I felt all kinds of souls around me. They recognized me, and I had my crystal skull there with me, and I did a meditation to try to help to release them, to get away from, being stuck in that place, because there's still a lot of souls there from that battle. So is it possible that my future self could be talking to me? Yes, it is. Is it possible that my future self could tell me things about our future? Yes, it is. Is it possible he would tell me, how do I go from where I am now to where he is? No, he cannot. Because if he does, I cannot become that person, right? So what he tells me is where he is in this period of time. The world is at total peace. We are with our galactic family. They're walking amongst us. We're visiting with them. We have total freedom. And the children of this time will not believe the stories that you and I will tell them of our experiences that we went through till we got to that point. They'll go, how is it possible that one person is going to want to kill and harm another or kill animals? This doesn't make any sense. It won't exist anymore. So Argus is the name of who I become in the future. And Argus talks to me occasionally. And what Argus did when I was in Brazil, for some reason, Brazil, the vibrational frequency in Brazil, all of my gifts get really sharp. He wrote through me and he wrote about what the future would be like. And basically he was saying, you know, all the adults are parents to all the children. It's community based. So it's like each community, that's your entire family, you know, and total peace and the galactics and everything. So I put together a free ebook called Messages from Argus, where I talked about what I remember of this meeting and what Argus channeled through me when I was in Brazil. Because when I looked at what I wrote, I go, how could I possibly have written this? This doesn't sound like me at all, but yet it was a future me. So, these are the.
So what are you doing still here? Get yourself down to Brazil, man.
Well, well, part of the reason I'm here is I have to create this new center now. It's called the Center for the Advancement of Humanity. And what happened is in 2018, when we moved from Washington State, because when we were in Washington State, we would go up to British Columbia, so we'd know Canada very well.
Yeah, what part of Washington were you in?
By Seattle, Kent, Washington. Yeah, so not too far.
Yeah, Kent is a nice little place.
Yeah, so we stayed in apartments there and so on, and we really loved it, but the price of everything got so high. So my wife's family is here in Atlanta, so we moved and we've been here since 2018. So over 4 years. But what was I going to tell you?
You were going to tell me about your new center.
Oh, yeah. So in 2018, I had a meeting with two other individuals. One person I thought might have access to some fairly wealthy people because, you know, the problem is when you want to create these projects of light, you have to have resources to do it. You know, you can't do it by volunteers.
Right.
And so nothing came of it, but I was asked, well, write your vision of it. So I wrote it because I'm a writer. You know, I write books, I write articles, I do posts. I'm constantly writing. So writing to me is a no-brainer. The only thing is I'm not a polished writer. I write so fast that if I don't check my work, I'm missing words, or I use the wrong tense or whatever. So I'm really looking forward to the center so I can have my personal editor, so that will never happen again, especially as you get older. It's harder to remember things. But anyway.
I hear that.
Right. So anyway, I wrote the whole thing down. I wrote Center for the Advancement of Humanity. There's all these different departments, you know, Department for World Mysteries, Department for Health, Computer Department, digital coins was in there, and pretty much all kinds of stuff. And nothing happened. But then in March of this year, all of a sudden, well, no, I think this was part of it too. So like in February, for 3 to 4 weeks, this was not COVID, but I had like the flu or something. And I got a message, you need to stop eating meat. So I became a vegetarian. And then recently in May, for 1 week, not too long ago, I got sick again. Now I'm vegan. I can't eat dairy. And what happened is after I got sick, then in March, all of a sudden I got to, okay, it's time to start the center. And I'm going to every start of me. What are you, crazy? Every time I try to do something where I don't have resources, and even though it's a great idea, it's just going to discredit me. People are just going to think, oh, he's going crazy again. You know, he's Looney Tunes, you know, whatever. So, but anyway, I followed up on it. I start talking with people. I have like over 20 people now in about 8 or 9 countries who are interested. And the main thing that we're doing is we're anchoring the energy. Because for those who are following these changes that are going on in the undeclared war, we are eventually going to see a redistribution of wealth. The reason for that, the Sara Jasara is the name given to the new economic system, which some people have heard about. There's supposed to be all new currencies backed by precious metal. And right now, what I've heard is the Russian ruble is now backed by gold. I think China's yen is backed by gold. I think India Ruby is backed by gold, and there's a couple other countries that are doing this. And it's the
So
same thing with,
how do they do that? Like, if you've got fiat currency, how do you
right?
convert back to a real amount, like a actual, like gold? How did they do that?
They just decide to do it. And they've been working on it, according to what they're saying on Telegram, for several years now. So apparently what they did is, for the last 5 or 10 years, they start working on it and set it up. And they must have a system in place now that facilitates that, because they have announced it to the world that the Russians have, that their ruble is backed by gold. Now,
So for that to be true, that has to mean that the Russian banking system centrally has acquired enough gold, like a huge amount of gold probably, and
yeah,
then taken a look at the
SWIFT system.
well, yeah. So yeah, look at your total, I guess your gross national product or whatever, or I don't know
Right.
how they would do it.
But it's
How much money do we have? And then
right.
divide it up by how much gold they have.
I would guess. I can't substantiate that. I can only tell you the announcement
Okay.
that I'm reading about. But what it has to also do with is the SWIFT banking system is the system that has control of the world. There are people claiming that QFS now is in charge, and they haven't announced it yet. Quantum financial system. When the quantum financial system replaces the SWIFT system, then all currencies will be called rainbow currencies, and they will be backed by precious metal. I have seen images of the new dollars, which will be called United States Treasury notes. And
okay, that's something to watch for.
Right. So, this could be announced at any time. Again, I'm talking about things, I'm telling people things here that I do not have the proof of it, but what I'm going with is the meeting that I went to and the things that I saw and the things that I'm re-seeing now and what seems to me to make sense. Right. So what I believe will happen is when this redistribution of wealth comes, then humanitarian projects will get help. And that's where our center will get its help. And then we will be able to do what we feel to do. Now, one of the keys in our center that will be important is, how do I decide who's going to work for us? Because everybody's going to get paid. I mean, this is the only way that it will work. It'll be a profit. We might have nonprofit too. We have to see. Is I will ask each person that's interested in what we're doing, one key question. That question's very simple. Actually, every person needs to know the answer to this question for themselves. What makes your heart sing? What do you love to do more than anything else? If they know the answer and that's something that we need help with, like for example, right now, I'm not very good with computer graphics, but I grabbed an image, changed the text, and I created a logo for the center, okay, which I'm using temporarily until I find the right person who's like ultra talented. And I say, please, can you help me? And they'll come out with the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen. Well, imagine working for a place that everyone that works there is doing what makes the heart sing. Imagine going into a place like that, okay? What I think is going to happen is people are going to love coming to visit us, whatever it is, whichever way we can help them, whether it's information, books, documentaries, healing, whatever we're going to be doing. And they're going to be surrounded by people who love what they're doing. Now, the other thing that I'm trying to do is I'm talking to people about this. Like today, I talked to another organization, and I said to the organization, we will not need your help with resources, but would you consider, because we're moving in parallel directions, to possibly co-create on certain projects that come up where you have certain talent and skills we don't have and vice versa. But if we put it together, what could we co-create together? It'll be magnificent. And so I have them open to do that. So I'm going to, be talking to other groups. So essentially, we become an example of one of the centers of the future. And by the way, Argis has whispered to me, by the way, your center is still here in 2040. So when I hear something like that, I'm never giving up. I don't care what it takes. I just have to trust in the process and trust that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is just going to guide me to the right people and be at the right time at the right place. It's a new adventure. I must have new adventures if I'm an Aries. What can I
Right.
do? I can't help myself.
That's
So
what
this
makes your
is
heart sing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping track of the history too, as much as possible. So we already have for the center, like I said, about 9 or 10 people in 9 or 10 countries who are helping to hold the energy. Okay. Even though we
Yeah.
don't know the exact form, I believe here in the Georgia area, we will create a physical location, the main one, and then we will have sister centers all over the world, and we will have affiliation with other organizations and centers.
Okay, let's focus on this energy thing because so I think this is a good. I think this leads us well to your crystal skulls.
Okay.
Um, are you using the crystal skulls while you're holding this energy?
For me personally, no, but some of the other members are. Why I say no is because I've been involved with the crystal skulls since 1983. It's almost like an automatic part of who I am. So whatever I'm doing, they're naturally a part of it. But the key with it is I'm crazy because I've written one of my books is called, Jesus, this is the problem when you get older, you forget it. Journeys of a Crystal Skull Explorer, Travelogue #2, Search for the Blue Skull in Peru. There, I remembered it. It's a long one.
Okay.
Okay, so what this book is about, 3 journeys that I took between, I think it's 1997 and 2002 to Peru, looking for a sky blue colored crystal skull, feeling my body pulled magnetically up into the northern part of Peru. So this isn't the area that most people go when they go on their tours with the Inca. This would be pre-Inca people probably. And
so is it okay if I pop some
yeah,
questions in on this?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
What first led you to believe that there might be a blue skull in Peru?
Okay, so what happened is the first time that I went there, how do I define? This is it's not an easy question to answer because it has a lot of different parts. What I was zeroing in is when I was there in the first trip, I was high up in the mountains, in the Andes Mountains in the northern part. And this Peruvian family, simple Peruvian family, let us stay in their house. I mean, this is a house made out of aluminum and wood and really tiny. So I'm sleeping in this, in my sleeping bag in their kitchen. And all of a sudden I'm looking up at the ceiling and a hole opens up like in the air above me and the blue skull floats out through it.
Okay, so like a vision?
Yeah, I would say it was a vision.
All
but
right.
I think it was the real. See, the thing is, this blue skull I've never seen in the physical. Okay, but I have seen it through vision. Matter of fact, I see it through my vision right now. I'm trying to point at it right there. And I've actually had it sit on my hand, my right hand, where I have people put their hand on top of it and they go, wow, my God, what is there? Okay.
Right.
So it's like, I don't believe that it's time for it to be in our reality yet.
Yeah.
But it has been in the past because the area where I went to in the mountains, there was an ancient Lemurian ruin there. And I had the vision of this temple and there was this circular room. And this is while I'm there, I have this vision. Okay. And there was like glass cases on the wall, 13 glass cases on the wall, different colored crystal skulls in this circular room. And a person literally could go take the crystal skull out, could put their crystals in its eyes in order to receive its vibrational frequency that had recorded, or to sit with it and meditate with it. So I saw this vision. Okay, but this temple no longer exists right now because I think it was part of Lemuria, and we all know Lemuria was submerged. Okay, because when Sumeria submerged, the Peruvian mountains rose. The mountains rose.
Is that when Lake Titicaca was lifted up into the mountains?
Right. That's why they say it's the highest elevated lake in the world, because when Lemuria sank all this stuff in Peru rose, the mountain rose and everything. And
So it seems like this skull was like almost so like not tangible, but some almost like sort of phased out or something. So it's like almost in our reality, but not quite.
well, this is what I think happened. It existed on the earth when we were in a higher vibrational frequency. And when we declined, let's say, we regressed, it went into a higher dimensional frequency, and it's waiting there right now. And I believe that Argus has that skull where he is in the future, but its vibration is so high, it's not yet ready for it to come forward. But we have many other crystal skulls that are showing up, in ancient ruins in Mexico and Central America. There are some found in Asia, all over the place. Crystal skulls have been coming out.
Yeah.
So
okay, so though now you have some crystal skulls in your possession, I believe.
right, and all of these, go ahead.
Are any of them like from archaeological digs or like where? How do you get them?
Okay, most of the crystal skulls we have were either gifted to us or purchased. Okay, and they were made by modern carvers who are using diamond tip tools. But there are two skulls we have, which I think are, I don't know, the word that is used for the very old skull is ancient. They possibly could be over 1,000 years old or whatever. They're more primitive looking. They don't look like any of the modern skulls. They have a different vibrational frequency connected to it, and very unusual how they came to us. So they may be older skulls. But okay, so I have a skull here with me. I don't know which one it is. Maybe it's the blue one, maybe it's a being. They want me to say something about these different skulls too, so the listener understands. Some people, when they start studying crystal skulls, they think the reason why people want them is so they can become more powerful. That's completely wrong. The skulls themselves is like a tool to help us in our spiritual evolution. And also the other thing, and this is the only way I can explain it, when I'm having a conversation with the crystal skull, what am I talking with? It's a living consciousness. It's almost as if there are other beings who are able to use crystal, especially quartz crystal, which allows it to communicate through various dimensional levels so that we can have conversation with them, and they can help us like a tool, like, if you get a crystal skull, like for example, Portal de Luz, Portal of Light is one of the crystal skulls we have. It was made by a Brazilian carver, but there's something inside of that skull the carver did not put there. Okay, I think that the consciousness that went into the skull knew it would eventually come to me, and I will admit my true essence is that of a galactic wanderer, which is what George N. Williamson wrote about in the 50s. So it recognized me as a wanderer, recognized me having worked with crystal skulls probably in many, many past lives, probably in ancient Peru, in Atlantis, I know in Lemuria, I must have been in that temple in Lemuria if I'm seeing it. So a lot of different lives. So some consciousness said, okay, here's a beautiful crystal skull. We're going to go and work through that, becomes Portal of Light. And I even had a Mayan elder I met in Holland, I will not say his name because I don't want to embarrass him, who thought that was one of their old skulls. But he thought it was old because it was activated in Sedona by his own priest at a sunrise ceremony. It's like, well, it was already active, but then it really got activated after that sunrise. And Portal de Luz was sitting next to another skull, which is known as ET, which is a Mayan, probably very old skull. So what happens between the crystal skulls is they share their energies with each other. Like, for example, we did an experiment where when I was in Chicago one time, I got 2 new skulls that had never been used by anyone. They just came from the carver, and I set them next to Portal de Luz, and we had a device called a meridian stress test system. A meridian stress test system is used by some medical doctors in Europe to diagnose a patient because the meridians in the body don't lie. They say exactly what's going on in your body, but it's more from an energetic perspective. So we were able to see after we put next to Portal de Luz those two skulls, they responded much more powerfully to the person we tested afterwards than when we tested them before, where they just came from, the crystal person. Okay, so it's almost like they were sitting next to their brother's skull, and he helped to bring them to life and get them juiced up and activated. Similarly, we did a similar test with the most famous crystal skull in the world, which they did not show on the Sci-Fi Channel's documentary, 2-hour documentary, because it was done by their group with Bill Holman, who has the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. This is the one Anna Mitchell Hedges found in 1923, I think it was, or 27.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely the most famous of the crystal skulls.
Right. So we had a meridian stress test system with us. We had Portal de Luz with us. And when Bill was connected, Bill Holman, the guardian of the skull at this time after Anna passed, all of his readings were totally balanced as soon as he was next to the skull. But we would assume that because he's sleeping with it, it's around him all the time, it's vibrationally shifted his frequency and his energy. But we also saw when other people were around the skull, compared to being with a regular crystal or a Portal de Luz, their vibrational frequency also was shown to be higher with that machine as well. So basically what I'm saying is when a skull is activated, when it is brought to life, it has the ability for healing, to activate spiritual gifts in a person, creative gifts, all kinds of stuff. And this is probably the reason why many of us have been, let's say, motivated to do world peace meditations with the skull at the same time, because it's a geometric multiple of the energy that we're doing at the same moment of time, working with the energies of the skulls as well.
Right.
Portal,
so
go ahead.
Being with the skull makes you feel energized, essentially.
Not anymore, because it's already a part of me.
Okay.
See,
so
what happens is
you're always energized now.
Yeah, pretty much. In other words, if I brought Portal de Luz next to me here while I'm talking to you, I won't feel any difference because I've been around him so much, we're integrated. Okay. Now, if the
if I were to show up there and spend time with it, theoretically, you're saying that I'm going to feel better or have better ideas or feel more energized or something like that.
I can't predict that because every skull is unique and each person is unique. So it might not be Portal de Luz. Maybe it'll be our large rose quartz skull that you'll feel the affinity for, or maybe it'll be Geronimo Golden Eagle Eye, which is the smaller smoky quartz skull.
I'm going to grab something here. One sec. So, okay, so I've got this guy. Now he's not crystal; he's glass.
Right.
But will he do anything?
No.
No, because he's just why? Because he's just glass.
Glass. He's glass. Now, no, I can't say that definitively because everybody is unique. There could be some people that a glass skull is what they need.
Okay.
Like, for example, there was the Mitchell Hedges skull was shown in Arizona at this event, and like everybody was in love with it. But there was one woman there who had a center called like the Amethyst Center. She didn't feel any connection to it. But when I pulled up pictures of a me, which is an amethyst crystal skull that I believe is quite old, she loved it, and it really energized her. Okay.
Right.
Or there was a woman I just talked to tonight before I spoke to you in New Zealand, who connected with me because she felt a strong affinity for crystal skulls. So when I brought out Portal de Luz, show her, it was like she was going crazy. She could feel the energy. She was vibrating.
Excuse me.
So that's why I say it's a unique experience. So you can't say, definitively. Or like another example, I'm just trying to give you examples that I've observed. There's one woman who we had a crystal skull and we were going to do a healing. She couldn't look at the skull because to her, a bone skull, death, doom, evil. So we turned the skull around so she didn't see the face and she got a healing.
Well, it's interesting because that's the thing is like there's the whole thing about crystals, which is, many people have various beliefs about why crystals are cool or whatever, but there's millions of people who are into crystals for whatever reason. And then the skull thing is also a whole different set of people that are
Yeah,
just into skulls. I have a t-shirt with a skull on it.
right.
So it's almost this kind of a, this intersection of two different things.
Right. But what the crystal skull to me ultimately represents, which is the most powerful, it's like an ancient computer. It has the ability to store and to receive cosmic knowledge and information. It's then in our shape and it can transmit it to us. Okay.
Okay.
Because we have a similar shape.
So is there information being transmitted ever, or is it more of a, like, do you ever hear words that seem to come from a crystal skull?
Yeah. Portal de Luz talks to me all the time, calls me
Okay.
Dad. Says, Dad, you're not doing this right, or he'll go, Dad, you're too serious. We need to have more fun. Or when I'm doing a lecture, what do? We dance together. I throw him in the air. I can't throw him that far because he's 10 pounds. Okay. It's not like the Indiana Jones film where they're taking this plastic skull that would be 30 pounds if it was a real one and throwing it to each other. It's not possible.
Yeah.
But I throw him in the air and we're dancing, and I've never dropped him except for one time. And the one time I dropped him was in front of the gigantic stone door called Aramu Muru, which is by Lake Titicaca in Peru. And
Oh
that
yeah.
is a dimensional door that could be connected to who created our computer simulation. This is
Right.
according to one of the persons that went through. And I did a meditation in front of it. And after I listened to this guy talk about his experience on the other side, I'm hearing these scientists now in my head. Can't hear their words, but I hear them talking. And it makes a lot of sense to me that this could be a door to another universe.
So so let me just make sure I'm understanding you correctly. When you were in Peru,
Right.
you went to this portal, this door.
Right.
What's it called again?
Aramu Muru, or there's another name the local people have, and I can't keep it. Antewilka or something like that. It's really strange, but Aramu Muru is how it's known.
Okay, so like I've looked it up, and I'm planning on going there possibly within a year. And so you went to the doorway, and did you kneel down or stand in the doorway?
I knelt at the doorway. I had Portal de Luz in front of me.
Okay.
I put my head, there's like a little spot. It's like a small door with a big door over it. Yeah. So there's a spot in the little door.
In case our listeners haven't seen it, it's basically this cliff that's just in the rock side, and carved into the cliff is this like very high precision, almost like they used laser etching to make these it's sort of a rectangle, but it's a little bit like wider at the top, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of a weird shape, and then there's like places where your arms fit, and like if you kind of get into this sort of kneeling position, that's said to be a portal to another dimension.
Right. So, it's a little tiny door. It's like a little tiny door with a much larger door above it. Yeah. In the little door, you go in and you meditate, and there's a spot where you can put your third eye in. So I did that. Yeah. But the other thing I did is I have a song I've written. I also have musical abilities. I don't know. It has to be past life because I don't know. I pick up a guitar and I hear songs and I just sing them. So I have the Crystal Skull theme song, which I've sang at conferences. And actually at the conference I did in Holland, I think it was like 2006 or so, I had everybody singing this song because at the end it goes one family. Okay. And I even had a Siberian shamanist who's into vocal that came up to me and said, that was a really powerful song. But I had everyone singing, and there was orbs. Somebody took pictures above us. There were totally a ring of orbs over us. It was one of the most powerful experiences I ever had. And I had to go out into the audience and sing to them. So I had other musicians playing while I went out and sang. And my one friend said, I never saw the child of you come out so much as it came out when you came out to sing with us.
Cool.
So
So
anyway,
you're in the portal, and then you hear what you interpret as scientists of another
this was
race,
later.
another.
This
Oh,
was
okay.
later. In other words, I just felt the powerful energy, and I
Yeah.
felt I have to sing my song while I'm
Okay.
there. And
Yeah.
then this guy, Jerry Wills, talks to a shaman there who says, if you utter these notes or a tone, you
Uh-huh.
can go into the door. And he does. And he does. And he tells, who's the lady that reported the cattle mutilation? She's very well known.
Oh, was it Linda?
Yeah, Linda Moulton Howe
Yeah.
interviews him.
Yeah.
So there's a YouTube video where he's telling her the story, and his wife is there and watches him disappear. So he was
Oh,
doing
he
something.
literally disappeared.
Yeah, he went inside. So what he
Holy
said,
shit.
hey, let's talk about this. What did he say? I put this in the Blue Skull book, by the way, his story and my story.
Okay.
And also to my wife, Katrina, she had a remarkable experience there too. But anyway, so he goes inside. And then he's looking around and he's kind of like in this white room and he hears this voice saying, hey, you, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. How did you get here? And he says, well, you know, the shaman told me and I was speaking this tone and now I'm here. And they said, well, you see that big structure like held on metal bars? There's a big structure in front of him. He says, yeah, that's where you came from. We created that universe so we could understand our own universe. But here's the thing that totally threw us. We didn't put any life in there and life just showed up by itself. So the Peruvian people say when they see these like hooded beings coming through the door, that these are the gods. So their name is the door of the gods. That's what they call it. So apparently the scientists come through looking like hooded people, check around, see what's going on in their creation, and then they go back. So Jerry Wills went. So what I'm saying is, after I heard Jerry Wills on the interview, which was probably, I don't know, could be like 5, 6, 7 years afterwards, then I start realizing what happened to me, and I start hearing these scientists in my head. Like whenever I think of the door, I hear them talking in my head. I just can't hear words, but I hear them talking. It's as if, like somehow I integrated with that reality. Some part of me is connected there. That's the only way I can explain. How can I hear it unless I'm connected there? And
but you
Portal
didn't
de
hear
Luz,
it at the time,
not
when
at the
you were
time.
there.
No, and Portal de Luz must have an energy encoded inside of him from that too. You know, so he encoded something, I encoded something. So I'm thinking that something will come up in the future, and maybe I will get to go through the door myself. We'll see.
Well, that is really fascinating. So I do want to just mention, because it's directly related, this idea of a crystal being able to encode information is like literally just high-tech science. Like we do that. We do have crystal storage devices. And another strange fact is that they actually talk about that same technology in the Bible, in the book of Joshua. Right after Moses' death, Joshua shows up with he calls it a stone, but it's used to record and to witness the conversation that he just had with the people. He buries it under a tree and he tells the people, just in case we need to refer to this later, because you guys agreed to this, I've got it recorded, and he sticks it under the tree. So yeah, this is fascinating stuff.
So
I want to ask you about so there's a bit of there's kind of two ideas here that seem that they might be contradictory, but maybe they're not. And maybe we're just thinking about it wrong, because on the one hand, you've got this idea of the physical universe and being full of different life forms, and our galaxy and maybe other galaxies are teeming with life and have these meetings that you've attended. And then we also have this idea about the simulation. So if the hooded men in the portal created the simulation, is the universe that we know all part of that simulation, or is the universe that we know, do those hooded scientists live in the universe we know, and yet there's still, so you know what I mean, like there's these
Right.
different shells, and which is which, or are they maybe a Mobius sphere?
I don't know what the real answer is. What I think is, let's look at it from both perspectives. If this is a computer simulation, doesn't make any difference if God created the reality or an intelligent species created the reality, and our soul said, that looks interesting, I'm going to go in there and experience it. You know, there's no difference. Okay.
Right. So in that formula, we would basically be like, it would be the same as like, okay, today I decided to turn on my computer and play this video game, except I got like sucked in, or you know, my video game character persona doesn't know that he's not real, that he's just being played.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, we probably are actors because, you know, whenever I try to go inwardly to really my true self, it's really hard for me to try to imagine from this perspective, the earthly perspective, some of the things that I see in my mind's eye, you know, like this meeting. I don't think this meeting could exist on our dimensional plane. I think that there was some aspects of it that it had to be on some other dimensional plane of existence. And the other reason for that is because my physical body stayed on Earth, but a part of me went somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
So your character in this game is not aware of the other games that your real self is playing, but sometimes there's like a memory glitch and a little piece of data goes from one game to another game.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
That's how we're able to say this, like, okay, we can call it a past life or a different dimension or whatever, but it's just data from two pieces of software migrating where it's not supposed to be, or whatever isn't normally, let's say it that way.
Yeah, because I think what it is, see, if I wanted to try to feel myself being in simultaneous places at once, I can do me here and 3 other places. If I try to bring on a fourth, my head hurts. So in other words, it's like the physical brain can only handle so many variations or differences. Like if you go with the TV show Sliders, where they're going from parallel Earth to parallel Earth, you can only handle so many of those at one time. Okay.
Sure. I can only run so many video games at one time too, because my processor speed is limited. My memory is limited.
Right. Right. So that would be the way that I would look at it. So to me, it doesn't make any difference if this is a simulation, if there was a higher being who created this reality. It is an opportunity for us to have unique experiences. One time I asked a question inwardly, and I got a very profound answer. The question was, why would God care about each of us individually? We're so tiny compared to the infinite universes and universes and universes. And the answer came back and said, because through each of you, I have a unique experience. So what is that saying? That's saying that, you know, it's not about right or wrong. It's not who's better or who's worse. It's that we're each unique, because I know that there are other aspects of me who are similar in parallel Earths. I remember this sometimes, but so they're not exact.
There are no NPCs. We are all player characters. And so we all matter.
Right. We all matter. Yeah. And through each of us, we have unique experiences, and Creator wants to experience it, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, whether it's light or dark, doesn't make any difference. It is a unique experience. And this was what the message was. So this means then the greatest thing that you can do is to just accept who you are and do the best you can. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You're not You're perfect exactly who you are every moment, all the time. Sometimes you may decide for yourself, well, I don't like myself. I didn't do such a good job. Well, you always have a chance. You can do better. You can do it different, completely different. So now in this particular reality, what I think is unique is it seems like most other worlds, I'm not going to say planets because I'm a flat earther. I don't believe in globe planets. I believe in worlds. Most other worlds basically have one common, let's say, philosophy of life that they live by. Here on the earth, we have so many different cultures and philosophies. I think that we are quite unique. I don't think there are very many other places that are like this. And because of that, we have a lot of interest from a lot of visitors. They can't understand, how can they coexist? This guy's Jew, this is Christian, he's a Muslim, he's a Native American. They don't believe in the same thing. They don't believe in the same God. So to them, it's like, how do we do this? But somehow, some way, I don't know, I don't have a problem with all those other people being who they are. I can kind of relate to them, and they have the right to decide what they want to do, and it's perfectly okay with me. Native Americans have a great philosophy if you take the time to sit down and listen, to what they believe. Okay,
Yeah.
so before we get carried away here, I want to be able to give to your viewers
Yeah,
how
let's
to
do that.
get in touch. So in case they want the free ebooks or they want to learn more about crystal skulls or whatever.
For sure. So I think I actually have to wrap it up pretty quick here. So why don't we just do that? Tell us about all the cool stuff that you have for us. Don't worry about like spelling out URLs or anything like that. I'm going to put the links under or possibly right on top of my face here. And then we'll have links for everybody. So you're going to send me those links. But just give us a rundown.
Okay, so we have 6 free ebooks that we offer. Crystal Skulls, Tartaria, Flat Earth, Are We in a Computer Simulation, Messages from Argus, and the other one was from May of last year where I did a high-level scenario about what's going on in our world. So probably still a lot of that's true, but things have changed since then. Anybody who wants that free ebook, easiest thing, just send me an email. crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. Just write in the subject, I saw you on Ken's show, or the free ebooks you mentioned, whatever, and I will send them to them, or I'll tell them how to get them. For the website we have on the Crystal Skulls, that's cse.crystalskullexplorers.com, cse.crystalskullexplorers.com. We're eventually going to update it, but for right now, it's still good enough. It has a lot of articles, all of our books, some of the books I talked about, you can find there rather than give you all the titles. Just look underneath store and you'll see the books. I will mention one book, though, is about Atlantis from a publisher in Pennsylvania. I sell more of that book than my own book. It is from scrolls that were found in like the Bimini area under a building underwater that were written in Atlantis and translated. It is very interesting how they describe Atlantis in that book. So that's on there as well. For our center, we have a, why can't I think of this? Rumble video channel that we're building. So we have an interview I did on Tartaria there, a welcome message. We have an interview with Reverend Dove, who I spoke to in Arcturian through her. She's a spiritual medium. So that's a 2-part video that's on there. And very shortly after this is up, this weekend on Saturday, I'm going to speak to Dr. Reverend Phil DeLong, and I'm going to speak to the Pleiadians. The Arcturians told me, interesting, that the Pleiadians probably will be the ones who will show up in the sky with their spacecraft. That will be one of the key events that will really get people awakened to what's going on. So I'm going to ask about that. So that video should be up. We're also on Telegram. We have a channel for that. So I'll let Ken share that with you if you're on Telegram. I have a single web page two on Crystal Skull Explorers that just describes what the center is. And of course, for the center, we're either looking for people who want to help us build it, or that you may wish to become a member in the future, that I have your email so I can contact you when we're ready to start sharing all this great information that we're going to be coming out with. So those are the basic things that I have for people. And of course, you know, you can just email me at crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com if you just want to continue a conversation, if you had some experience that relates to what we're talking about or whatever. I'm always willing to talk to them. I want to thank you, Ken, for giving me this opportunity to share. And I'm glad that you went with a flow with it, because I had no idea how we were going to go either. I just figure you'll start asking, I'll start talking, and it will just come out the way it's supposed to come out. So
for sure, for sure. Okay, well, thanks a lot. It's been great to have you here, Josh. Again, Joshua Shapiro, everyone. If we were live, I'd ask you to give him a big hand, but hey, what are you going to do? We're on the internet. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and check back later. We'll see you all next time. Please visit our sponsor, neandertees.com, fashion for the discriminating Neanderthal.